Welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together. My name's Clint.
Hey, I'm Tony. Welcome back.
And welcome to part 2 of the episode from last week, a discussion on justice. I thought we just had a really good conversation, and instead of dumping a hour-long plus episode on you, we decided to break it up.
Yeah.
So enjoy the second half of this discussion on justice. If you didn't catch the first, be sure to scroll back and find that one.
All right. Enjoy.
Let's say Clint, I have my arms lopped off and I'm squirting out blood out of my torso.
Yeah.
So at this moment in time where you see it, Clint has a claim right against Tony for his resources to help me stop this so that I don't bleed out.
Yeah.
That's a pretty specific claim right that I've mentioned. And
Yeah.
I might even be on board with that.
It is specific, though.
You know,
it's very situational.
But when we have these political discussions, what we're saying is everyone has a claim right against everyone else for medical help of a lot of different kinds. And
Now, that's where it does get tricky.
I mean, you built almost like the paradigm easiest case of like, my life's in danger.
Yes.
And maybe we could get on board with those kind of rights. Now, again, there are natural rights and derivative rights. The Declaration was meant to outline natural rights that you have in virtue of being a human being. Derivative rights might stem from those, or maybe even conferred rights. How about that? That a polis, and this is where, to your point about we just got together and agreed. I mean, yeah, a polis can come, a city, a gathering can come together and confer whatever rights they want to be upheld. That just means these are going to be instantiated in law and you are owed whatever based on the things we dreamed up.
Yep.
I mean, who knows? I have a right to a sidewalk in front of my house if I live in Medina. That's not true.
Yep.
That could be written into law, and all of a sudden, now people have to come work and build that for me. So that's a conferred right. It's not derivative in any way from the natural rights.
Yeah. Okay.
So just the example of just a right to healthcare. I mean, healthcare is incredibly broad. And
Well, yeah.
Are you saying, but just because we want to be really clear about what we're saying, for anyone to have a right to healthcare, are we saying that that's a claim right against all other citizens or community members to give of their resources in order for you to receive any medical attention?
Right. Things get messy really, really quick. I mean,
and again, you could say we can wonder about all that, and the whole time we can all be in agreement that it's good.
yeah.
It's a good that you get medical attention for the most part.
Yeah.
There's some fringe cases where
Well, maybe not, but yeah, sure.
maybe you don't stop the bleeding on Hitler when he gets shot, you know?
Yeah.
But just crazy fringe cases.
Yeah.
So it's a very specific thing we're talking about, and I think that gets conflated a lot too. Like everyone has a right to healthcare. Wait. Do you just mean that it would be really great for everyone to have healthcare?
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks that, and everyone's trying to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But do you have a claim right where people can go to prison if they don't give enough of their money to you to get the aid?
That gets complicated, especially if, like the picture I painted of somebody on the side of the road with the arm off. Who knows how their arm came off? You know, could have been a wolf, could be tragic. But someone's in the hospital with lung cancer because they've been smoking ciggies for 50 years.
Man.
And now they have a claim right on your wealth to pay for their treatments because of choices they've been making for 50 years. That does seem problematic.
And there are some rules built in just for that case in particular. I mean, you're not going to be able to get certain treatment as is, but that's mostly due to shortage and practicality, not in principle.
What about, two other words that are thrown around a bunch, equity and equality.
Oh, man. What a minefield.
You want to tease these out for us?
I can try, or at least try to relate them to what we've been talking about.
How do they fit?
Well, certainly, I just always be nervous when someone says, well, certainly, because they're usually not certain. So
Yeah.
I'm very guilty of this.
Maybe.
Of course. It's like, I don't know. rights are the sort of thing that it would be nice if everyone were equal in regard to them.
Everyone had the same rights, you mean?
Yeah, or at least the natural ones.
Yeah.
Or sorry, well, if there are natural rights, then everyone does have them.
Right.
So whether or not they are codified in a law. And so many of the atrocities of human history have resulted from there not being there not being a quality of recognized rights. I use recognized and conferred are different. Conferred can be completely arbitrary. Recognized means like I'm just acknowledging that you do have this natural right that you had all along, regardless if I recognize it.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So African American people, hundreds of years ago that were here working as slaves were not recognized to have the same natural human rights that folks like us would have.
Yep.
And that's tragic.
Yeah.
And that is a cause of a lot of injustice.
Yes.
And it's a reason why rights and justice and equality come together, because there are some interlacings, right? We might say when people's rights aren't respected or, upheld, then that is when injustice occurs.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think I do.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, man, I guess a lot of the issues of our day come down to whether someone does have a right to a certain thing. And that becomes really tricky to figure out when we get to these derivative or conferred rights. LGBTQ plus rights. We're in the midst of Pride Month. Gay rights. What does that mean? What are we talking about there?
Yeah.
Because in virtue of being human beings, it seems like they do have all the same rights. And in fact, this isn't as much an issue now, but one kind of clever, interesting argument offered by someone opposed to homosexual marriage suggested that they did have all the same rights regarding marriage.
Yeah.
The right is, and the law of the land is, if you are a man or a woman, you have the right to be married to someone of the opposite sex.
Right.
You also have that right. You're just choosing not to partake of that right.
Well, it just the laws never said anything about sexuality or sexual preference at all. Still don't. You and I could get married if we weren't already.
Right.
And we don't have to be homosexual to do that, That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah.
In the same way that you don't have to be heterosexual to get married. Yeah.
Right. So equity to me, equity. What does it mean in finance? Isn't that a term
Yeah, it's ownership. How much ownership do you have of it? That would be equity.
Okay. Maybe that doesn't apply here. But
that's why I'm confused.
What I've seen it to mean, and of course it might be different depending on how you've seen that word used, but to me it does mean sameness.
Sameness.
Same amount.
Oh, okay.
You and I, if you were to both fill up a glass of milk at halfway, those are in equity. And you and I, if we were to each we would be equity in our amount of milk.
Okay. It seems the same as equality. They're equal. You filled them up equally.
Yeah.
Are they the same word? Describing the same thing? I thought there was some big distinction there.
It is confusing because I just don't normally endorse the whole system of thought where that's normally used. Hey, how about this?
You can say that, man.
Maybe we can throw this up on the screen. There's these classic little pictures that if you're ever in a diversity HR training, you're probably going to see something like this.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of 3 kids standing on some boxes, or maybe not standing on a box at all, trying to look over this fence to watch a baseball game. And and they'll have a big bold word at the bottom. And one of them says equality, and it has everyone standing on a brown box of the same size. And there's one tall kid, one medium kid, and one short kid. Tall kid is loving it. He has a great view. That box is only helping. He probably could have seen over the fence anyway. He can see that ball game. Medium kid only now is able to see because of the box. And short kid can't see still. It's like one of those green mesh fences that you can't see through, you know?
Yeah.
Equity, if I'm remembering this right, is little kid now has big kid's box. So the tall guy who could see over the fence anyway is standing on the ground. He can see over. Medium kid has one box and can see over. And now short kid has two boxes and he can see over. That is the pictorial difference. And what I think that's saying is we should strive for equity and not equality, because there's this good out there, this external good in this metaphor, watching the baseball game, that equality didn't get to. We gave you all the same things, but that didn't actually achieve the good outcome. What we need is equity, is ensuring that everyone partakes of the good. And to do that, we will take away from those that are already enjoying it and will continue to enjoy it once it's taken away.
Now here's...
I think, is that your understanding of when you've seen those images?
That's my understanding. And I have a few thoughts. One is, if I were in the situation where there was a fence and kids and boxes and whatnot, it does seem like the better situation is the one where everybody gets to see. And tall kid doesn't need his box and gives it to the little kid. I see that. If I was the tall kid, I'd like to think I would do that. Give this small child a box to stand on because I don't need it. That seems good.
Okay. Let's see where you go with this.
What I wonder is, that's helpful as far as a ball game goes and boxes, but that's an analogy for society at large. What is the ball game? Just because, and what do the boxes represent? Is that money? Are the boxes money? And some people have heaps of money and some people don't have any money.
Let's run with that, yeah.
And the people who have heaps should give some to the people who don't have any, so that we can all watch the ball game.
How you've described it betrays in a way your political leaning, in that of being someone who endorses liberty. You framed that whole thing of...
Well, giving money instead of taking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The tall kid giving the box. Everyone has always liked that. It's called charity.
It's called generosity.
And that is a great virtue.
Yeah.
Now, what causes conflict is when perhaps there's a perceived... someone perceives that that's not happening as much as you'd like. There's too many tall kids are not giving away enough of their boxes. And so we are proposing that there's a fourth guy actually, and he has a gun. Okay. And we're all going to vote, the three of us, and whatever comes out, we're going to tell that gun guy to take your box and give it to the smallest one. That's kind of what's happening with lawmaking in a democracy.
Yeah.
And laws.
Right.
Because if you don't follow them, you will go to prison. And if you keep fighting, they will just shoot you.
They will. Yeah.
Eventually. If you kick up enough of a stink,
they'll put you down.
So that is where the consternation happens, is equity that good? Like, I agree with you, dude. I want everyone to partake of that good. And let's just wait for a moment on what that is. But I want everyone to partake of the good. Is it, now we can flip the question back on these folks. Like, what is justice? Is justice, yeah, dude, maybe this is it. Where is the locus of justice? Is it that everyone gets to see the thing? Equity? Or is justice how we get there?
Wow.
Is it just to take away from the tall and give to the small?
I'm trying to think of a situation where...
Or maybe it's both. Maybe both are justice. And everyone thinks they're on the side of justice when you're only on half of the side of justice.
Say more. Say more about that.
Everyone thinks they're on the side of justice when, like, I have conservative leanings and I would be more opposed to the taking away of boxes through law. I'm more interested in charity and just other ways that everyone's seeing the game can be achieved. And again, we do need to talk about what that means. But I don't want to do it in any old fashion. I'm afraid of it just being taken away by fiat, by mob or majority rule. And maybe that's unjust. Is it justice to arrive at it in an unjust way?
Right.
I think those so committed to making sure that everyone can see the ball game might be betraying their roots in a way by doing it in an unjust way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was always my issue with the figure of Robin Hood. He's this bloody scoundrel.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. He's giving to the poor. That's good. But he is stealing. Okay.
Are you ready to jump in?
I do want to talk about
Okay.
the ball game,
Yeah. Okay.
if we can.
Yep.
Because depending on what that good is, you said several times there, yeah, we want everybody to participate in the good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is that good?
Yeah.
Because
That's important.
it's a lot more complicated than just looking over a fence at a ball game. If we're talking in the realm of money and lives and society, here's what I want to say. I think we could snap our fingers and redistribute all the wealth in the world so that it was completely equitable. Everybody had the same amount. Let's imagine we could do that. Just Thanos snap tomorrow. Everybody's bank accounts are exactly equal. I think a year from now, things would be much closer to the distribution that we currently see than they would be equal. I think it would pretty quickly fall back into its distribution curve. And I think that's to do with the differences between people, what they choose to do with their money, what they consider the good to be. So, for example, say the good is having and raising a family in a safe neighborhood. Maybe that's the good we want everybody to be able to do. So we Thanos snap, redirect the wealth. But there's some people who, for them, the good would be spending all the money on booze and ciggies. And they would do that and cause themselves health problems and then have an empty bank account. And so maybe they've participated in some good, but what you've ended up with then is you've moved everybody's boxes around and one kid has taken his box and turned it into a campfire and lit it on fire. So do you give him another box and say, come watch the game, it's really good? Or do you just say, well, you got your box?
No, I mean,
You see the problems?
I think I do. In the breakdown of the analogy is that everyone's watching the same game.
Yeah.
I happen to think that there are contours to the objective good, and there are really things that you can say about the good life. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just on my own little journey here, and I'm trying to play that out. But there are some really good things to go after. I do want everyone to taste and see that, but not everyone is interested in that game. I mean, you said it well.
So are you then, you would be
I think here's a way to put a cap on what you said. Equity is not something we should try to force. It's unwise to try to legislate or force equity.
well, okay.
Is that
Yes.
under the pictures that we've painted?
Given that what causes inequity is a problem that's going to run far deeper than something policy can solve.
Yeah, it's not merely a matter of more or less resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot more complex than we can get into here, and there's so many facets of a human life and what leads people to certain places of depths of poverty
Well,
but just as I said, like when I just said the objective contours of the good life, I'm not even saying that someone who has $1 billion is more ahead of me on that path.
oh, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
I could be closer to achieving it than someone with $1 billion.
Yes.
I may or may not.
Yes. But we did talk about in our Does Money Make You Happy episode that there is some baseline level of wealth that's required for minimal good life.
And it turns out some research has been done that there might be a cap where there are stark diminishing returns.
Right.
They've said 75,000. That was a few years ago, before all the influx of pandemic money.
Yep.
Maybe it's 80,000 now.
Yep.
But there's this point, a household income of 80,000 in the US, and in
Yep.
2021, when this is published, that the happiness level will go down sharply.
or it won't increase at the same rate that it has increased.
Sorry,
up to then. Yeah.
Diminishing
So,
returns. If you made 100,000, you would not be
that much happier.
You wouldn't be 25% happier.
Yeah.
Even though you have 25% more money.
Right. So, but I want to say, okay.
But they are saying that from 40 to 80.
Yeah.
You might be twice as happy.
Yeah. So, you going back to the box analogy, you were saying you agree it would be good for everybody to see the game. It would be better if that came about through generosity and charity than through taxation, taking, however you want to phrase that.
Mm-hmm.
What about a situation when you got a guy like a Jeff Bezos, who obviously, founder of Amazon, has given us this incredible tool of Amazon. We can have stuff delivered to our house super quickly, and say what you want about Amazon's business practices, labor practices, any of that. That's a whole separate discussion. Let's just look at Jeff Bezos' wealth, which is, he's set to become the first trillionaire by 2022, I think, pretty soon. And I don't think most of us have a handle on just how much $1 trillion is. That it's a million. So think of how many $1 million is. And now think about 1 million of those millions. There's some really interesting videos you can find on YouTube that lay this out for you, where each grain of rice represents like $100,000 or something. And you look at Jeff Bezos' wealth compared to like a millionaire or a billionaire, whatever. The point is, the disparity has gotten so great, like almost incalculably great, how wealthy this guy is. What do you do? Say this. I get that we want generosity and charity to be the main things driving us forward, but what do you do when the guy at the top of the hierarchy just isn't too interested in generosity? And I'm not saying that about Jeff. Actually, don't know much about Jeff. Don't know what his philanthropic efforts are like. Maybe he's really generous. But let's hypothetically say you've got this system where we'd rather not take. We would rather people give who have a lot. But over time, it gets skewed, the distribution, and the people at the top tend not to be generous. Then what do we do? You can't enforce generosity, you know? And it does seem to me like our system is one that over time stacks up at one end. That seems to be what happens.
And what are you saying needs to happen? Like, what is the problem that would need, like, why look at Jeff's wealth at all?
Okay.
Is there some problem that needs solved?
Yeah, good.
To where we need to turn there to...
The problem would be, just that there's some kids with no box, or there's some people who are really, really in the dirt financially. And let's even make it the best case scenario. It's not a result of their choices. It's not a result of smoking ciggies and drinking themselves to death or whatever. They've been trying, they've hit some bad luck, had some health snags, whatever, and they are really financially in trouble. And then you've got some other folks who really aren't in trouble at all, but have no incentive to help the bloke on the bottom.
Dude, it's a complicated moral, political question. So one thing, I have a lot to say about this. One topic would be, what's the baseline level of well-being in a human life that you would want to provide a social safety net for? To where if you're not here, you're below it. What do you need to get there?
Yep.
And so what's that level? I think any just society, if you will, one that's morally good, would strive to ensure that social safety net has no holes in it and will be effective in bringing people up to that level.
Okay.
And I think what also has to be said is, of course, it's better to be above the level.
Yeah.
Maybe up until the 80,000 mark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of better. And it does keep getting better, but marginally so. We have to make a cutoff point of what that floor is. And maybe it should be higher than it is now. But
we have that.
That already exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for instance, and so I'm happy to go round and round with people and debate. It'd be productive and interesting of what that should be. 3 square meals a day, shelter, clothing, getting to the place where you can find stable, gainful, meaningful employment. That like, let's make it so that people can get to that floor and have it be government funded. That is, and what that means is we're all pitching in with our income to
make sure
help
nobody
those.
falls below this baseline standard of living.
That's right. So I'd want to know where that is.
Yeah.
And then I'd also want to know, so now let's say that's not happening. We are being ineffective at bringing the populace that's below that to that level. It takes some time, but it's taking too long for a pie slice of that, the people that are in that situation. Okay. So we need to look to different areas of the budget to make up for that. You know, maybe that's a really strong ethical priority, and we're going to bump that maybe even above education efforts. So maybe we pull from education, or do you pull from infrastructure, or do you pull from this? So that's one option. Another option is, hey, let's make if we take from 2% of the military budget, that's going to stink. But what if we could raise the budget? And so we'll raise taxes. We'll take a little bit more from everybody else and do this. Well, I don't want to take a little bit more from anyone else. What I really want to do is just take from these Jeff Bezos characters. No human could possibly ever use that much money. He won't miss it. That'll solve it in a heartbeat. I think that's kind of like the thought process here, right?
Right. Yep.
Well, just here's a few things to think about with Jeff Bezos and other, extremely wealthy capitalists. One, a lot of the wealth that they have is just the fact that he owns a large portion of Amazon.
Right.
Like he's worth almost $1 trillion because Amazon's worth a lot of money.
Yeah. It's not cash in his bank account.
He owns a lot of Amazon, and Amazon is a very valuable entity in human society. That's why,
as evidenced by how we all use it.
Yes,
we value it. We have voted that.
that's right.
Yeah.
You might also say like Jeff isn't being generous enough. I mean, my personal opinion on this is that capitalism is a very generous way to structure society by by what's happening in any transaction that you do in a free market society. It's this really magical phenomenon where like just value is created somehow. It's really remarkable. I'm about to on the way home. I bring my $1, and this has an objective value, so to speak. You can spend it other places, and it'll buy you a tenth of a shirt from Kohl's or something. And this merchant, Speedway, has Diet Mountain Dew. And it's so weird. I value the Diet Mountain Dew more than my dollar, keeping the dollar. And he values my dollar more than keeping his Mountain Dew. So we both come out on top in this situation. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
It's very much unlike your classic schoolyard deals for Pokemon cards or something where someone regrets.
Yeah.
Like we both, when it goes well, my dew isn't sour, my bill isn't counterfeit, we both walk away thrilled. Well, this is happening at an enormous scale for Amazon. All this, like we all are experiencing this great generosity in a way. You
mean it's generative?
Yeah, I
the
guess
process
so.
is generative. Yeah.
It's also, I think there is an aspect of just any business that's operating on this level of wanting what's best for others. It's other seeking. Although the ultimate derivative might be I want to make a profit and make money, I have to engage in other directed thinking. I want you to have a good experience. I want you to gain value from this. I want you to have the feeling like you want my due more than you want your dollar.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing you want to achieve for someone. So it's a virtue of capitalism. So that's something that Jeff has brought to the table in an incredible way. Now there's all sorts of things we can say about, like, is he doing it fairly? We brought up fairness earlier. Is Amazon conducting their business appropriately? Are they violating some rights from workers? There's a lot going on that's said about that. But at the 30,000 foot view, it's not inherently bad that Amazon's worth a lot or that Jeff is worth a lot.
Yeah.
What that actually ends up meaning in society is that there's generative value. Your life is better because of it.
Yeah.
So we just have to be really careful to, I think we tamper with that at our peril.
Yes.
There's this great good that's occurring. There's also this great good of making sure that people reach this floor. Maybe they're below the floor of this acceptable well-being level to where we will fund you to get you there.
Yep.
And it's, I think it would be more helpful, I think, if our political conversations were framed in this way, more, intellectually generous and curious with each other about how to make these trade-offs, when to take in order to shore up this fault line or not.
Well, I can see that there would be another great benefit I can see with capitalism is that it incentivizes innovation because the reward can be great. If you are someone like Jeff Bezos who takes a chance, I'm going to start selling books online. Nobody's ever done that. We'll see if it works. And I'm going to outlay some costs initially, and I'm going to buy the books, whatever. He sets up this thing. Turns out people like it. They value it. He makes some more money. At a certain point, I don't know if this is good or bad, but it seems true. At a certain point, if you tax the very successful entrepreneurs more heavily, you will de-incentivize innovation, which would be a problem for all of us because we all benefit from innovation, technology moving forward, all of that. So you don't want to de-incentivize it too much. Here's what I'm wondering, because I've heard you mention this before. Maybe we're going too long. I don't care. I'm just interested in what you think.
Yeah.
You've said before, I think that you think maybe there's wisdom in harnessing people's self-interest as far as policy goes. In that, be careful before you kill the entrepreneur's incentive and his ability to reap a reward himself, because it will stifle innovation. Better if we could come up with a policy that he's allowed to act in his best interests and it happens to benefit everybody else as well because of the policies we've got in place, as opposed to like a policy that would say, Jeff, be more generous or something. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I do. I mean,
Okay.
the second one you described just sounds like not taxing them and letting them make businesses that help you and I. Like, it's in my interest for them to not be too heavily burdened.
Yeah.
Now, I think here's an interesting comeback is when you say they,
Yeah.
it all depends on what we're talking about with the cutoff of who's getting taxed. I mean, if you're saying anyone above $150,000 a year as the wealthy, I mean, that's a lot of people.
Heaps, yeah.
And you're hurting some people that aren't actually as wealthy as you think they are, that are like small business owners.
Right.
When what you're really trying to do is go after the Bezos, the big whales.
Yeah.
But even then, the reason that it does end up often not just being the hyper big wealthy guys, it's because it's not actually that much money when you really think about it. We could do some quick math. Can I do it? I want to find out if you diluted Jeff, how much everyone would get. There's three.
It's like a few bucks.
Let's just even say it's 10,000.
Yeah.
Just to be safe. I mean, that's a solid amount. You can definitely make your life better, and you can make your life a lot better if you're on the bottom end.
Mm-hmm.
But what that meant is that there's no Amazon.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that much,
Yeah.
But if you diluted his private bank account, I mean, it's dollars a piece. So it doesn't help you really to just cripple. I get that you don't like the hyper rich and like you don't think that they need all that money. You're right. They don't. They don't need it all.
Yeah.
Need it all?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But when you're designing policy, what's the cutoff line for the super wealthy? And I think you'd be surprised, whatever the worry would be about hamstringing Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and these guys, the hyper wealthy, there's similar problems that manifest at the smaller order of analysis. I mean, let's take a Dave Ramsey, who does the financial coaching. I think he's somewhere I could be totally wrong, but I think it's like in the 30 to 50 million range which is, wow, that's incredibly wealthy. Nowhere near these other guys. But part of what that means is like he's this owner of a business, and he employs a lot of people, and just a lot of lives are affected by this. But yeah, it's not super clear that it automatically means that just because you've done this thing that it should be redistributed.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was wondering is, I think the
Maybe we
problem
can
is
tie it back into all the other concepts too.
Yeah, maybe.
What are we talking about here with this capitalism digression? It's about
Equity.
It's about equity.
Yeah.
So we're pretending that floor, that basement is some equity, I guess, that we're trying to get people to. And we just got to be really careful about what goods are being sacrificed to get there, and whether that is itself unjust or unfair.
Yeah.
Here's something we didn't quite say yet, but it's super important. It's said all the time. Equality of opportunity.
Yeah.
This is important. That does seem like something you'd want everyone to have. And maybe that is built in. Maybe we don't, that floor we were talking about, we do not, maybe that shouldn't just be fiscal in nature. It's also some just rights or opportunities that people have that are all built into this. And so whenever people aren't like meeting that standard, for whatever reason, someone doesn't have equality of opportunity, we want to make sure that they do.
Yeah.
That strikes me as totally reasonable.
That seems reasonable. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you'll have equality of outcome.
It does not mean that. And you cannot it's just it's a fallacy of logic to point out inequality of outcome to mean that there wasn't equality of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the...
It could.
Yeah.
It could be the case, but not just because.
Right. That's goes back to the Thanos snap thing. Suppose everyone did have it exactly the same amount. You would see the outcomes differ.
So much of this stuff and the choices people make and the trajectories, it's not just all a money thing. And whether you had certain products.
Well, that's certainly not a measure of like, did you live a good life?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I would be shocked if someone could come up with an argument that, and I was convinced that not everyone in this country has a chance to like live a good life. There, aside from like really bad actors and abductions and murders and like people coming after you, it really seems true that we all in America, by the grace of God, thank goodness, at this year, we have equality of opportunity. You can really make something of yourself here. No matter your upbringing. It'll be harder.
Isn't it something that's such an unpopular message in 2021? What you just said. That's really unpopular.
It is. And again, maybe there's hope here. Hopefully the disagreement is more surface level and that we're just using these terms incorrectly. That's kind of my hope for this episode, is we just think more about these terms and being more generous with each other and how we're using them. But like someone might fire back and say, well, clearly they didn't have equal opportunity. You just said it would be harder for them. So the opportunity wasn't the same. Well, now we're kind of mincing words, and like you can go to school and be educated. You can go to college and get educated there and do whatever you would want to do. The government will give you loans to pay for it. Whether we like that or not, that's what will happen.
Yep.
If you call 911, the ambulance will come to your house. So you're not going to just die for no reason. Again, other than freak accidents and bad actors. If they're going to come protect you. 911. We have these different systems that protect. If your house catches on fire, we're going to come put it out. There's a lot going on to provide like this baseline level of well-being to let you pursue the pursuit of happiness. We're saying that that's a natural right of yours in virtue of being a human being. And we want to build our society in such a way that secures that. And I'm all ears for ways that it's not being respected. And those things would need to change. I just haven't been super convinced that that's the case in a lot of ways.
Well, and I just am more and more aware that those changes and tweaks need to be made very carefully and thoughtfully. The whole thing is very interconnected, and small changes can have unintended consequences, and it's not as simple as just saying, "No, just tax the really wealthy." Like you would give something up to do that, and you'd want to be careful about what you're giving up.
Or like equality of opportunity. Well, this school stinks the public school stinks where he is, and this guy has a really great public school because the public school is based on, what's it called? Property tax. And so wealthier homes generate more property tax, and crappier homes, less property tax, and thus the schools are worse due to money.
Yeah.
Does that mean that those children have an unequal opportunity? Well, what do we mean really, like, by opportunity?
Maybe they do, dude. I mean, if the goal of schooling is to come out educated, let's say elementary school, high school, with a general knowledge across these disciplines, you go to a crap school with bad teachers who don't explain concepts properly. You are not.
Oh man, really? I don't think. Well, just my understanding of the problem is not that the teachers are bad. Like, they're not teaching wrong stuff.
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know what they're doing.
That's not why the schools are bad. I thought the schools are bad because, I mean, ultimately, I think it's like a cultural issue. Kids aren't paying attention. They're dropping out. They don't care about it.
Okay,
it's a raucous classroom.
Okay,
it's hard to handle the students.
Let's take that raucous classroom. That's fine. That's still a student who is trying to be educated in a raucous classroom is not being given the same opportunities that somebody trying to be educated in a well-ordered classroom where everyone has MacBooks is, right? It's not the same opportunity. One is way harder to learn. It's a real uphill battle. Well, like, yeah, maybe the private school thing is different because private school's going to do what they're going to do. But like, I don't know. I can imagine the rich school having, like design and technology classes that the cheaper school wouldn't. And so maybe these kids do have opportunities to, like, whether it's learn software or maybe they have a great woodworking and they learn how to use all kinds of really expensive power tools. But old maid in the cheap school didn't have that. He gets a hammer and a nail. Right. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can just say, well, they both went to school. But to your point earlier, that's true across every domain of life, everywhere. Everybody's lives have idiosyncratic challenges, obstacles. Well, like, I couldn't learn because this guy was shouting. Well, yeah, that's life, man. Like, so the problem of trying to do equity across the board is that it just seems so unattainable given how many unique little challenges everybody's got to face and overcome. You can't make it equal for everyone.
But even I wonder too about, like, that almost assumes it's a laudable goal, but we can't get there. I wonder too if it's even something you would want, like that everyone has exactly the same amount, and
right.
And maybe it just kind of folds back in on the initial problem of people make different choices, and it would just make sense that eventually those choices would lead to there being differentials in, I mean, even like personality traits, and whether someone is a really conscientious, is a saver, is going to play out over time. Like, that person will be more wealthy,
right?
More likely than not, than a spender.
Yep.
And so do you do a once for all check-in, like you're saying, okay, equal it out?
Let's run the experiment, everyone.
Yeah. Or does it happen every 5 years? So then really you're punished for being a saver.
Right.
You know?
Right. complicated.
That's an interesting point about like does someone in a crappier, it sounds obvious a little bit.
To say crappier school, yeah.
Crappier school, do they have the same opportunity? I mean, I guess when, yeah, maybe I shot myself in the foot. What I mean by equality of opportunity perhaps is, yeah, you have the same ability as everyone else to pursue the pursuit of happiness, to manifest your right to the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. Is anybody claiming they don't have that?
I think they are, but then it just gets bottled up in these different little case studies, which solving that problem of the bad school it just has to be more complicated than money.
Yeah.
And like you said, you tinker with that to your peril, but then you may not even really address the real problem.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's the drug war and men are going to prison that shouldn't be, and who knows, like all the different ways it's influenced. Anyway,
complex.
It gets complicated. We started off with justice.
If you're still with us,
bravo.
After that, well done. Well done. Jeez.
Those are pretty good example of like how, like when we have a discussion and
this is just how they go.
Yeah.
It's just, this is me genuinely trying to learn and grapple with stuff. So
again, I'm not attempting to teach about this whole topic, maybe some little terms here and there, but this is just a couple of guys having a conversation, hoping to learn from it. I learned a little bit. I'm challenged to think more about how to articulate equality of opportunity. That turned out to be less a clear concept in my mind when you asked about it.
Evidently, the concept of rights was less clear in my mind than you might hope.
Think more about these different terms, like just how these all relate: justice, fairness, equality, and equity. I think if you in fact have made this, and anyone is listening to this sentence, notice how much they come up on your social media, on websites that you visit, and just try to make sense of, like, do these all mean the same thing? Are they being used interchangeably, and what damage does that cause?
Yeah. Yep.
Because justice might be happening even though things aren't equitable, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Things might be equitable and unjust.
Unjust. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking with us. As always, if you have a comment, a question, you can reach us, mailbag@opentatruth.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below and we'll get back to you. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And, subscribe to the blog. If you like to read about this kind of stuff, opentatruth.com/subscribe. You'll get those sent to your inbox once per week. And they foreshadow what we're going to be talking about?
It's that week, what you're listening to that week.
The OTT topic of that week. Cool. So by the time you're hearing this, maybe you want to read and see how long the blog post is that Clint comes up with about this topic. We'll see.
I'll try to keep it to 4 minutes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time. Stay curious.